Man finds secret drawer in old yard sale dresser. Emil Noddle was a 67-year-old retired marketing director who has lived in Texas his whole life. Retirement oftentimes got lonely and boring, so he had to rely on his various hobbies to keep him entertained. His hobbies included searching for hidden treasures at yard and estate sales. He hunted down some really good prices, and he had been stunned by his discoveries of unique items. However, he could have never anticipated what he would hunt down in Missouri, Texas. Emil honestly did not expect to find anything special at that particular sale. Even if he did not find valuable items, he thoroughly enjoyed going to yard sales. He almost always found something that he liked. Sometimes it was practical items that he could use around the house, other times the items just looked nice. However, there was something different about this sale. Emil was walking around inspecting the items, and it came to him as no surprise when he did not find anything extraordinary. There were intriguing items, that was for sure, but they weren't well priced and he did not feel especially drawn to them. It was an antique wooden chest of drawers. It was composed of wood and featured a marble top as well as some intricately carved drawers. It was documented to be from the 1890s, according to its evaluation. It was an attractive piece, there was no doubt about that. However, Emil was determined to find something special about this wooden chest. He decided to investigate further. He inquired about the cost of the item, and it was listed at $100. That was strange because a few days ago, the item was being sold for $300. Nobody seemed to buy that item, and the yard sale organizers just wanted to let it go. Emil was under the impression that he stumbled upon a steal. He immediately purchased the item and took it to his truck. That's when he began to hear strange, frightening noises emanating from within the dresser. There was a rumbling noise within. He stopped in his tracks to locate the source of the noise. He opened the drawers to inspect them again, however, they were still empty. He inspected each side of the dresser just to ensure that he did not overlook anything. And then he found it, a hidden drawer at the bottom of the dresser. It appeared to be made with the intent of concealing rather than storing things. As he opened the secret drawer, his heart was beating. When he finally saw what was inside, he couldn't believe his eyes. It was a stash of very valuable and antique items, gold coins, historical artifacts from the Civil War, jewels, personal mementos, and letters. That was a treasure. Not only was it worth multiple times what he had paid for the dresser, but it was also a piece of history. Emil found himself in a dilemma. What should he do about the secret, precious stash? He had only paid for an old dresser, and he had ended up with a lot more. But he was unsure of what to do with it. But he thought about the ethical side of the incident. He had only paid for the old dresser, and that's what he thought he was taking home with him. The managers of the yard had been clearly clueless about what was truly inside the dresser. Also, some objects from the stash clearly would have some sentimental value to whoever owned them originally. He would return the stash to whoever was the original owner of the dresser, and he would just keep the latter. After all, it would have been unfair to follow the finders, keepers policy in this situation. I'm an old ex-Marine, and I try to do the right thing, Emil explained later to the reporters that asked him about his story. That same evening, he took the stash back to the managers of the yard sale and informed them of his discovery. He also asked to be put in contact with whoever had sold them the dresser so their identity could be verified as the relative or relatives of whoever left that treasure there for their descendants. Finally, someone appeared and rightly demonstrated that the stash belonged to him. Emil gave it back and took the dresser home, glad to have followed his Marine moral code regardless of the temptation. Truly an example to follow. Emil isn't the first person to find something unexpected in what just seemed like a yard sale or thrift store bargain. However, some discoveries, like the one Joshua Scott found, are much more sinister and grim. Joshua Scott is a 9-year-old boy from Dothan, Alabama, who recently had the fright of his life. He went into a thrift store expecting to find some presents for his younger sisters. After searching for a while, he thought he had found a cute thing to give to the youngest of his siblings. The last few months hadn't been easy in the Scott's house. Joshua's mother, Jessica, had been fired from her waitress job in a restaurant. Even though she was applying for other jobs in the service industry, nothing was coming out of it so far. Now, the family was just relying on Joshua's father, Andrew, to make ends meet. Christmas was right around the corner, and the family could foretell that that year's presents would definitely be a lot less fancy than what they were used to. It wasn't like they would have to go through severe hardships, but they were aware that that year would be a bit of a bummer compared to the previous ones. Joshua was well aware of that. After all, he was 9 years old already, so he knew what was going on. Besides, he was getting less pocket money from his parents. Joshua had been buying presents himself for his parents and his two sisters for a couple of years now with the little savings that he had. And even though he didn't have much that year, he intended to stick to the tradition. So he came up with a plan. So he started strolling through the aisles, closely examining all the exposed items. Clothes, furniture, homeware, toys. There were so many possibilities. But what did their parents need in the house at that moment? His thoughts were racing, trying to figure out what their parents would appreciate the most. And that's when he saw it. Instantly, a broad smile spread across his face. There was a teddy bear sitting on one of the racks. Joshua smiled the moment he saw it, immediately thinking of his sister. The teddy bear looked quite antique, probably from the 50s or something like that. But still, it seemed to be in a perfect state. The fuzz was clean, and there were no bald spots. It was almost like no one had ever touched it since it was made ages ago. Right then and there, Joshua knew he had found his sister Amy's present. She loved plush toys and could never get enough of them. After a while, he found something else for his parents, a vintage blouse and an Italian coffee maker, both in a surprisingly good state, looking as if they were new. After he got home, he hid the presents under his bed. Now, all he had to do was wait for Christmas Eve and place them under the tree during the night. A few weeks went by, and that was exactly what he did. When morning came, all the family rushed to the tree to open their presents. Joshua's parents were delighted with what the kid had found for them in the thrift store. Amy, Joshua's little sister, also loved her teddy bear. At one point, Jessica asked her to pass it to her so she could see it. Jessica held and felt the bear, and she spotted something strange. That's when things took a creepy turn. There was something stocky and heavy inside the teddy bear. After feeling it and turning it around for a few seconds, Jessica found a zipper in its body. She opened it, reached inside, and pulled out some sort of container from within the teddy bear's body. She removed the lid and looked inside. Her face instantly went pale. It was a funerary urn with someone's ashes stored inside. The next day, the family drove back to the thrift store and asked about the plush toy's origin. As it turned out, the teddy bear was made by a funeral home from Philadelphia and designed specifically to store an urn. The Scotts couldn't keep the teddy bear after hearing the whole story. Fortunately, they managed to get another plush toy in exchange from the thrift store.